Hey friends, and welcome to the first episode of season 3. And before we begin, I want to give a big warm shout out to our newest patron. She signed up during the podcast break, and I am so grateful to her. Cheryl Cox, thank you for your generous support of the show. I really appreciate you. And if you too are interested in getting your very own shout out on the show, plus live virtual yin yoga taught by yours truly and many other perks, please consider joining our patron monthly membership. Cancel at any time. You can check it out at patreon.com/Ashley Weber Yoga. The link is also in the show notes. Now, I hope you enjoy this upcoming episode. Welcome, friends, to the Yoga and Podcast. This show highlights the science and brings the magic of yoga and mind-body practices down to earth for the everyday real person to help you live your best life. I'm your host, Ashley Weber, a yoga and embodiment teacher and forever student who is oh so curious about all things yoga. And on today's episode, we will explore yoga and sister circles with the co-owners of Bright Yoga Space based out of Australia, Kiely, Bertuch, and Emily Rose. We had a delightful time chatting about yoga and sacred connection, and I really appreciate them sharing their wisdom, and I am so excited to share with you this conversation. So let's sit back, relax, and enjoy the episode, y'all. Joining us on today's episode are co-owners of Bright Yoga Space in the Alpine Valleys of Bright in Victoria, Australia. They are yoga teachers and sacred space holders, Kiely, Bertuch, and Emily Rose. Hey, Kiely and Emily.
Hello.
Hi, Ashley. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're here. How are y'all today?
Good.
Good.
We've
Yes.
it's morning here, so we've been up and about and getting children ready and having business meetings, and it's all been happening.
Cool.
Feels like the day has well and truly begun.
Yeah. And it's night over here, and I'm glad I got the time zone thing right. So here we are.
Go us.
Yeah. I mean, we have it together, right? Would you both like to introduce yourself just a little bit more? Tell us who you are and what you're about in the world of yoga.
Would you like to go first, Em?
Sure. So as you said, my name's Emily. I'm one half of Bright Yoga Space, which is a collaborative business that we created in April 2020, just as the pandemic hit. And I have been teaching yoga for around 8 years, practicing for a couple of decades. Kind of found yoga in my teenage years, luckily. And I also teach mindfulness meditation as well as yoga. Taught it alongside different careers in different kind of guises at different times, and then moved to the country. So I initially came from the UK to Melbourne, and then moved from Melbourne to the country in Victoria, to the beautiful mountains, and met Kiely. We taught some retreats and some workshops and things together, and really bonded and became good friends, and then decided to create this business together as partners. So yeah, very grateful to be here.
Yes, and I'm Kiely, and as Em mentioned, the other half of Bright Yoga Space. So I have been teaching for about 10 or 11 years. My yoga journey started in my early 20s when I was living in Canada, being a ski bum in Whistler. And so I had the privilege and honor of having some great teachers over there. And I came back to Australia in 2009 with full intent to go back to Canada, but landed my feet back here, and I started teaching in 2011, just bit by bit, and then found my feet a little bit more with it in 2014. So started my own business, teaching in the Valley. And then when Em and I met, I was pregnant with my first daughter. So I have two beautiful girls, 4 and a 5-year-old. And yeah, it was just really serendipitous. Thanks, universe, for putting us together. Since getting to know each other and becoming beautiful friends, we have all these threads that weave back quite a ways, where we have crossed paths, we feel like, many times before, actually, bridging the plane of meeting and sort of growing our friendship from there. So but yoga changed my life in my early 20s. It's been incredibly transformational for me, very powerfully healing, and more so in the more recent years, women's circles. And that's like many others, it's now become my dharma. And so I'm very excited and honored to be here in being a conduit for this work. So thanks for having us. Yeah.
Wow, that's so exciting. And I can't wait to hear more about the circles, the sister circles. But I'm curious about, what was it like starting a business together? And especially, what was it like starting during the pandemic?
It was a beautiful thing, and also a very challenging thing. When the pandemic hit, we'd both been teaching classes for, sort of gyms and in halls, and as various yoga teachers do, you're just sort of teaching where you can, particularly in a small town. And we'd always thought of the idea of creating a bricks and mortar studio together, but hadn't sort of quite been able to realize that. And the pandemic hit, and we sort of we felt like we were faced with these choices. We could either just sit it out and retreat and not do anything, and then hope that we'd re-emerge at the end of it and do something, carry on as normal. Imagine that's what we all thought in April. This will just be a little blip and we'll just keep going. And then there was the other choice that we could both sort of put our stuff online, as everybody was starting to kind of scrabble to do, but knowing that we would be offering very similar thing and to very similar people. And so we'd pretty much be competing with each other. And then the third option was that amidst all of this craziness, we would actually build a partnership together. And so we kind of joke that, we took the plunge and we kind of got married, and we we sort of tied the knot, and we said, hey, let's just do this. And so we very quickly, in probably, I think it was even like a week, we built a website and got ourselves, a company name, registered our business, and decided that we were going to offer our classes on Zoom together, so we would share the load. And what that did, I think, we talk about collaboration and sisterhood, was that actually meant that we were able to support each other at a time when, we're teaching our kids at home and dealing with everything that goes along with all of the change that was happening in the world. We were actually able to, to really support each other and to inspire each other as well, and to check in and keep each other accountable, not only for, the work that we're doing, but also keep each other accountable for things like resting and looking after yourself too. So out of a really tricky situation, something beautiful blossomed. I think we used that language a lot when we were first starting out. Yeah.
I was just going to add, it's certainly been an incredibly challenging few years, but we were reflecting on this with a biz coaching group that we've been a part of this morning, actually, and just the sheer affirmation and of the resilience of what it takes to run a business. I mean, in normal times, it's a lot, and being an entrepreneur and mumpreneur, as it would be when you're wearing all of the hats, it's a lot. And so we feel like, there's this, we sort of made it through this really challenging time, and it's a wonderful opportunity now to really see things flourish, since we're seeing some sort of sense of normalcy come back into into life, so to speak. So but there's so much more to come, which we're really excited about. So
yeah, because since the pandemic, we've also, we've since opened an actual studio as well in our town. So we have our online space that we grew because of the pandemic, but out of that, we then had that foundation to say, actually, we can do this together. And when things started to open up just over a year ago, we opened a bricks and mortar studio too. Yeah. And I'll just add as well that one of the things that our business coach says to us is that your business is your yoga. And so we've had so much transformation and been able to put so much of the yoga teachings into practice through the journey of building a partnership together as well, which is a beautiful thing.
And running a business with a feminine mindset, we often have meetings around our cycles, and we often have, we'll often structure tasks running the business around how we're feeling, rather than, sometimes obviously there's structure and there's deadlines, so there's a little bit of Shiva in there, but there's a whole lot of Shakti in there as well, which is a really amazing and a very empowering way to run a business. And that, I think, is feeding into all of our offerings, in an energetic way as well. And that's very much, that resonance of the teachings of yoga coming forward too. So it's been great.
That is great. That's a great perk of working with another feminine person, is just that awareness of, hey, the cycles. And so you touched a little bit on sisterhood, and could you elaborate more on what does sisterhood mean to you, especially like within this partnership y'all are in?
Yeah, I mean, personally for me, I've had a pretty not so great history of experiences with other girls growing up as a teenager and other women. And I had this sort of, I don't know that taint is the right word, but I didn't have a lot of great experiences with other females in my life. Not until I was until I found yoga and teacher trainings, and I started to peel back a lot of layers and journeying through teacher trainings. I think one of the first circles I ever did was at my first teacher training, and it was so incredibly powerful. And just being in the presence of other women in a non-judgmental way, in a way that is supportive and being held in space, rather than a dynamic that can happen in other ways. I started to see the real benefits of sisterhood, the power of sisterhood, with all of the comparing and the competing and the, stripping away the ego side of it. There's this real magic that happens when women see each other as sisters, rather than you're another woman who I need to be, on guard with or compete with or whatever, all of that falls away when we begin to see each other's as sisters from a heart space, rather than an ego space or a preconceived, programmed way, which, unfortunately our heavily masculine encoded and patriarchal society has conditioned us to feel. So that sisterhood, that essence of that becomes very potent for us to feel seen, held and supported.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, as you said, we do live in a society that has socialized us to be very what we call masculine encoded, very growth focused and structured, and we can sometimes not even be aware that that's what we're doing until we put ourselves into those intentional spaces where we're celebrating the feminine and celebrating that more feminine energy. And sisterhood is for me, I guess, a celebration of that, of actually seeing those beautiful qualities in each of us. And that doesn't have to be just women either. It's actually celebrating that energy in general, and building that up and seeing the flow on of that will then help us to find more balance in the world, in the way that we live in the world.
Yeah, I'm what I'm picking up on is like it's a friendship, but it's I got your back kind of friendship. Like you mentioned at the top, you were talking about how y'all kind of take care of each other, like make sure you have rest. You have each other's backs in your own business. You're sensitive to each other's needs. So it's a very beautiful thing. What is a sister circle, and could you walk us through one?
Sure.
Okay.
So a sister circle is a gathering of women. Generally, we sit in a circle. And for us, anyone who is a woman or who identifies as a woman is welcome. And so the power of women to coming together in circle in a non-judgmental way. And this is a really key part of it. So when we step into circle, there is a set of understood guidelines. The container is set, if you like, that all judgment is left at the door, and there's an opportunity to be seen exactly as you are. It's just showing up authentically as you are, to be heard and held in this space. And so while it creates an opportunity for you to share, it's also this beautiful gift of learning to listen. And just, it might be something that someone shares about their experiences is the seed of something that lands right in your heart, and you're like, oh, I'm not alone in this, you're going through this too. And we straight away get that heart connection, and so circles, we generally set a welcome, an opening, set an intention. They're usually set around a theme. Often we'll do them on a new moon because that's a very powerful time to set new intentions. And women have been gathering in circle since the dawn of time. And it's actually a sacred act that us in modern Western society seem to have lost touch with. And so there are so many ancient cultures that continue to do this and respect this, and see the value in this and honoring that deep feminine in connection. And so really we come together, we talk, we listen, we hold space, and we'll do meditations. Sometimes we do some exercises for teasing out some deep inquiry and self-exploration, and that's when we can really have some aha moments, some very powerful kind of reflective healing moments because always when we shed light in the shadow, that's when awareness is the first step. We have the choice then to figure out how we're going to use that, what we find in the shadows. And so we do shadow and light work, and for us, women's circles can look so many different ways, right? They can be very I guess in a sense of really diving into very feminine activities, or they can almost be a little masculine encoded. They can be a little bit kind of corporate suit, shoulder pad wearing sort of bonding sessions. And when I was exploring my journey as a facilitator for women's circles, I really wanted to create an environment where everybody could find a space, we could meet in the middle somewhere there, that it wasn't too, feeling too woo-woo or esoteric, but it was actually not too like full on, and it felt really safe and very inclusive. And so, women's circles are, women coming together and having a chat, but there's so much more than that as well. Yeah. Em, did you want to add anything to that?
I guess my experience with women's circles has been, like you said, Kiely, the first time was really exploring in sort of teacher trainings. Although I think my mum took me to a women's circle when I was a teenager. So it was very woo-woo though. There was holding hands and all sorts. But I think my first experience of really coming together in circle was in teacher trainings, and starting to find that the power of actually listening to other people's stories. And some of the inquiry work that we do has been some of the most wisdom I've uncovered in my practice. And I think we can talk about that maybe a little bit in more detail about how, yoga and circles really support each other. But yeah, coming together in a circle, it sort of fills a little missing place, I think, where you can go to a yoga class and be in your own space. And it's a very individual thing in a way, even though you might be surrounded by lots of other people. But when you come to a circle, whether that's a meditation circle or a women's circle, whatever it is, if there's that opportunity that's really guided in a safe and held way to share, to put words to, your experience and have other people hear those words, and then to have other people share their story and you have the deep honor of listening to it and holding space for them. There's something it actually makes the hairs on my arms stand up when I talk about it. Yeah.
It can be overwhelming to know how to help others during these trying times. It seems like every day there's a new disaster catching our attention, and it's hard to keep up and know how to help. The Ukraine still needs our support. The war in the Ukraine has continued, and if you are able, please consider donating to the organization Razom. Razom is providing critical humanitarian war relief and recovery to address the Ukraine's most urgent needs. To support Razom, go to razomfortheukraine.org. It's spelled RAZOMFORUKRAINE.org. I have provided the link in the show notes. Give what you can. We all have a voice and something important to share with the world. Now it's easier, more than ever, to make a podcast of your very own and to amplify your voice thanks to Anchor by Spotify. I have been using this platform for going on 3 years now, and I can confidently say it is the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need right at your fingertips. Here's how it works. Anchor lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating right now, as in like today. With a single push of a button, you can distribute your podcast to the most popular listening platforms, including Spotify. Anchor is also the only place you can publish video podcasts to Spotify. With Anchor, creators can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. And best of all, Anchor is totally free. Yes, you heard it correctly. Anchor is free. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. I cannot wait to hear your podcast. Hey friends, let me tell you about my favorite herbal store, Earth Commons. It's more than an herb shop. They also offer gifts, body care, massage, yoga therapy classes, and more. I highly recommend their mystery herb class. I have learned so much about herbs from this class. One of my favorite things to get at Earth Commons is their bulk medicinal herbs. I like to make it into a tea, and actually right now I'm drinking lemongrass and nettle tea, and it is so delicious. Their herbal tinctures are fantastic. I use them to help with easing tension, anxiety, allergies, and even a sore throat. It's also the perfect place to find gifts for those who are challenging to shop for. They have candles, incense, natural makeup, teas, jewelry, pottery. You name it, they got it. For a limited time, Earth Commons is giving our listeners, that's you guys, 10% off your first order when you use the promo code YOGAAND at checkout. You can find them if you're in the Austin area at 813 Springdale Road, or visit them online at earth-commons.com. It's spelled EARTH-COMMONS.com. I'll link all their info in the show notes, so you're just one click away. And remember to use promo code YOGAAND to get 10% off your next order. And we're back. Well, I mean, I think it's that part, bringing that part of community, because we can do yoga on our mat in silence and never talk to the person next to us. But then when we're in that circle, so would you want to elaborate more on how yoga supports circles?
Yeah, I mean, I think as you said, it's that connection piece. It's an opportunity for us to be seen and heard in a different way. And the symbol of the circle is very powerful itself, coming together in the symbol of the circle, that is this deep connective place, this shape that we can make. Yoga classes are all very linear, often lined up in these kind of structured lines where all the students line up and the teacher is at the front, whereas in a circle, everybody is seen as an equal. Everybody is included in that continuous connective loop. And that is really powerful. And I think we forget that at sometimes, or we can do with yoga, the teacher's up there and I'm the student here. And, really yoga sees all of us and meets all of us exactly where we're at. And circles really provide that container, that deep connection. And obviously, I mean, things like the svadhyaya, the self-study that circles can really bring out for us, this niyama of practice, of self-study, of reflecting in when we look at those shadow parts of ourselves, when we look at those light parts of ourselves, and we feel safe to go there in a container that is held really well as in a women's circle. Women, the energy of the feminine coming together, that's very nurturing. This is a feminine quality, it's this essence of being held in that space. It's like you're almost being mothered in this experience, rather than, what can feel very isolating if we're out here trying to do all this work on our own. And I've had some incredibly healing moments in circle, and I've done work with therapists, and I've worked through childhood trauma. The yoga for me has empowered me incredibly in that self-understanding piece and that self-study piece. But also pairing it with the work we've done in circle has been so profound, because obviously, the physical side of our yoga practice starts to peel back those layers, starts to peel back and release that physical stuff, the trauma that is embedded in our tissues. And obviously pairing that with the other practices, we're very passionate about all aspects of yoga, the pranayama, the mantra, the mudra, the philosophy. And so for us, coming from this tantric hatha yoga lens, we bring all of that together. And I think in circle, we have this opportunity and it's certainly if you're coming to multiple circles, if you do them monthly, the work can be so deep, yet it could be the simplest act of you simply showing up and something coming out of your mouth, because we don't get to speak in yoga classes, but yet we get to open the body. And then if you're pairing that with a regular practice where you're speaking, you're using your voice, so powerful. And being seen in that place, you might spend thousands of dollars on therapy and not get the same benefit. But it's just that simple act might be exactly what is this incredibly potent and healing shift for you. So, while yoga creates this container and offers us tools for supporting ourselves during and alongside what we can uncover in the circles. And that's another way that they can work together so beautifully. I'm talking a lot with my hands for those at home listening. I love to do that. But yes, they can just work together so beautifully in this uncovering and this peeling back in this safe space, and then yoga providing you the tools to then work with what you find in the shadow on the inside and the outside, right? And there's this saying, as within, so without, and we get to work with that. Often the reflection of what bubbles to the surface from within, and then we get to use our yoga in our life to deal with what's on the outside as well as what's on the inside. Anything you want to add, Em?
Oh no, you've said it beautifully. I'm just really resonating with what you're saying, and that idea of the tools of yoga being a way of helping to shift some of that stuff, and the tools of mindfulness to help us to be more aware of all of that, that stuff that we're bringing up, but then the circle being like that mirror that can then reflect it back to us, and that container to hold what we're processing, which, as you said, you may have a therapist that might be helping you with that, or a dear friend who's helping you with that, but many people don't. Or they don't see the value of it until they come to a circle, and then they go, okay. Now I'm really seeing what's happening for myself, because I'm allowed to share it and to listen to it from someone else, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned it's ancient, like it is an ancient practice, and I'm just remembering a sacred circle I was in once, and it really, like I forgot about it, and then I was reminded just by y'all mentioning the nurturing part of it all. What does sacred connection mean to you?
It's a beautiful question. For me, I think it's coming together in an intentional way. And we can have beautiful connections with people, over a drink or a cup of tea, or meeting through some shared activity that we might go to, and we can have the deepest connections with people. But apart from when we go to things like weddings or funerals, or, if you have a religion, you might weekly go to church or whatever you do. But many people in our culture have sort of lost that intentional gathering, where we come together and maybe we actually set some intention, or we take the time to really presence ourselves, and have some guidance around the connection that we're having, so that we're doing it in a really intentional way. And there's space for both. There's space to be in connection in a really sort of just an evolving way, and a non-structured way. But there's also, I think, missing in our lives space for that really intentional connection, where we're really almost devoting ourselves to something a little bit bigger than just us, by coming together.
I love that, and well put. Yeah, absolutely. Sacred connection. I think it really is, it's in any kind of, as you say, an intentional experience. Certainly for me, anything that speaks really deeply to me, and I feel it in all of the layers of me, rather than a cognitive experience, or it's something that I really feel is very deeply seated in the layers. I feel it in my heart, I feel it in my tissues. I might have an experience, like you said, goosebumps, hairs raising on your arm. That's sort of this connection of something that resonates quite deeply within you, that is activated or evoked by the connection, and it can become very sacred. And then the more you peel back the layers and the deeper you go, the more sacred, that deeper that connection, that starts to resonate even louder. And it's certainly for me, yoga started as a very physical practice, as I'm sure it has done for many people, but it's become a very sacred practice for me. And as has the women's work, this, we call it women's work, these sister circles coming together, and this sacred feminine undercurrent that now weaves through all of it for me. And just bridging back to the previous question as well, there's this correlation of, we share a lot of story in the circles, and story is so potent. It's like the whispers of the threads of the worlds beyond our world, so to speak. And there's something that speaks to us very deeply when we listen to empowering feminine stories. And of course, mythology and yoga, we're listening to story and myth about Durga or Kali, or, we can't help but feel that energy that invokes in us. And, when we look to the the goddesses of all types from all over the world, these stories of the feminine, the sacred feminine coming through, we start to see that lens. We start to see through the lens of recognizing those qualities within us. And I think that is something that is so incredibly powerful for us as women. And as Emily bridged on earlier, you know, this opportunity of raising the feminine, so to speak, by doing this work is a very sacred act. And it's not that we want to overpower the masculine, we want to restore balance. And doing this work is working to restore that balance, and that is a sacred act in itself. So
and actually, sorry, just reflecting on what you were saying then, like I think anything could become a sacred connection when you bring intentionality to it. And it could be that, you know, I love music, and you might be going to watch some music, some live music with people. And if you just take a moment to actually really be present with where you are and the people around you, and you just even take a few seconds to kind of really feel that, then that in itself can be a sacred connection. And I think I've also had moments where, you know, you've had a conversation with somebody, or you're talking about something you're really passionate about. You might just be walking together, and then you'll actually turn to each other and just be like, oh wow, I just got goosebumps. Like that really touched my heart. And when you take that moment to acknowledge those little moments, rather than just being like, oh yeah, then that becomes really sacred. I love something about the act of just acknowledging and presencing with somebody else, that becomes really sacred.
And obviously there's sacred connection to the land too. I mean,
yes.
You know, we get to work with an incredible Indigenous woman in our community, and she's doing lots of work to grow awareness of, you know, Indigenous culture. And, you know, we are blessed to be on Tangarang and Dudrowa land here, with respect to the Waitmatang and the Waiwiru peoples in our northeast region of, you know, we live in Brighton, surrounding areas of northeast Victoria. And we have such an we live in such a beautiful part of the world. We're so lucky that the land feels very sacred for us here. And, you know, we live at the bottom of a mountain called Mount Buffalo, and there's something really magical about that place. And, you know, this is the essence of Shakti. It's the essence of, you know, Shakti manifesting in real form. That is nature, right? And we are a part of nature. And so there's sacred connection happening in moments in nature around us. And this is that, you know, that thread that keeps drawing us back to, you know, yes, we can connect as beings and people, but also this sacred connection, remembering that we are a part of something much greater than this container of our body. You know, that is a very sacred connection.
One of our teachers called it like your sack of meat.
Yes, your meat sack.
Your meat sack. Beautiful.
Yeah, I love these answers. Could you tell us more about like your upcoming? I know you do yoga and art retreats. What other offerings do y'all have? What offerings might you have coming up?
So we have a yoga and art retreat coming up in July. That's actually facilitated with my beautiful mother, who's been an artist for 50 years. And so we do some watercolor workshops with her, and then we do some yoga and meditation with her and her guests as well. And the act of creative flow. And so bringing in creative flow with the watercolor workshops is a beautiful, very feminine act, just allowing permission to be in creative flow. And so we've also done some collaborative circles as well with a local ceramicist, so making pieces of clay, with our circle being themed earth for, you know, the season of autumn and returning to the earth. And so we created these little sacred little dishes, you know, handmade. So that was a really beautiful thing, and we'll be doing more with her in the future. We have multi-day 5-day spring retreat coming up, which is co-facilitated by the local Indigenous lady, Lee Catch, who I mentioned earlier. So she's going to do a beautiful Indigenous Aboriginal art workshop for us and a connection to country and a practice called Didiri, which will be very special. And we're very honored to have her come along. And so we'll be having her as a guest on our upcoming podcast as well. So we're really excited to learn from her and honored to learn from her. And we have multiple workshops happening in our in-person studio in Bright in Victoria, as well as our weekly yoga classes. Yoga meditation, we offer breath work as well, but one of our heart projects, our absolute kind of passion projects, is our online yoga space. It's called the Sanctuary. So we have hundreds of videos in there of all different offerings of yoga. And that is something that will continue to grow and pour our hearts into. And so anyone globally can subscribe to that membership, and that's a monthly membership where we offer you new classes each week and really take you on a journey with our monthly theme. And that's supplemented by a beautiful local lady who's an astrologer. She's helping us feed her beautiful writings into there as well. And we offer asana and mantra, mudra, pranayama philosophy in there, so all very tantric hatha yoga focused. Is there anything else I've left out? Anything you want to share? The mindfulness workshops?
I trained with American mindfulness teachers Tara Brach and Jack Cornfield, and I share mindfulness courses online and in person and through one-on-one work as well. So it's a big passion of mine is teaching people to meditate. And also, as Kiely touched on with our online studio, it's really what we're about is providing yoga that kind of meets you where you are. There's so much to yoga, and if we do teach physical practice and physical asana focused classes, because we do believe that using the body, being embodied is so important. But there are also we're really, really passionate about making yoga as inclusive and accessible as possible, and so offering seated meditations and seated movement and pranayama and philosophy to take off your mat as well is really important.
And we will be weaving in more of the women's work too. So, we'll be bringing that into our online sanctuary as well, but also where I'm looking to create an online course for women's work. So that's in the pipe works. We'll be excited to bring that to the surface and doing more work with this online and the weaving of the gifts of yoga into the women's work. So very excited about that.
Yeah, that's exciting. So could you share with us the website, the handles, and then you're starting a podcast? What is the name of the podcast?
The podcast is called Bright Fierce Hearts.
Ooh, nice name.
And it actually launches on the 1st of May. So we'll be sort of just mainly chats with the two of us having some conversations, and we'll also have some guests that already work with us, as well as some practices. So we're really keen to share practices via that channel as well.
The trailer's up. You can go and subscribe.
You can subscribe already, so that's cool. We'll be meeting you in the podcast world.
Yes.
And we're also just about to launch as well, like a 21-day challenge or a sadhana, if you like, as part of our sanctuary, which is a way to kind of, sort of kickstart your practice. And it's called Yoga Meets You in 21 days. So it's really you finding your own journey and your why, your intention for your practice, because that's going to be unique to each person.
And there's so many different offerings in yoga, as you said. There's so many different practices. So how peeling back the lens of what the programmed perception might be of, oh, I have to be on my mat for an hour for my yoga to, you know, be a valid practice or whatever. So in our sanctuary, we offer practices anywhere from 5 minutes to 90 minutes. You know, you can choose by time frame, you can choose by, you know, the difficulty of the class or whatever, you know. And so this sadhana is really designed for you to see how you can bring these tools of yoga in their myriad of offerings to really meet you and have it be very potent for you in your life, in your body today. So
nice.
Yeah.
And then
which will shift from time to time.
It will. It always does.
Yeah. And the website is?
It's www.brightyogaspace.com.
Great.
And you can find us on Instagram at Bright Yoga Space.
Awesome.
Same with Facebook. Yeah.
Well, I'll make sure to link it in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Emily and Kiely. This has been such an awesome conversation, and I hope to have you back on in the future.
Thank you
thanks
so much
for having us.
Ashley.
Thank you so much. Thank you,
It's been a pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode all about yoga and sister circles with the knowledgeable Emily Rose and Kiely Bertuch. Be sure to connect with both Emily and Kiely and Bright Yoga Space. All their info is linked in the show notes, so you're just one click away from connecting with them, and I highly recommend that you do. Let us know how you like the show. We love hearing from you. Please email us at yogaandpodcast@gmail.com. The and is spelled out YOGAAND podcast@gmail. Please follow us on Instagram at yogaandpodcast. If you like the show, we would really appreciate it if you could rate and review. And while you're at it, please, all the other podcasts you like, rate and review them as well. It really helps us in the podcasting world to stretch out to a wider audience. So we really appreciate that. And I appreciate it so much. If you want some podcast stickers, just shoot me an email, say that you reviewed the show, and I'll send you some snail mail as a thank you. See you next time.